The United States of America may blackmail Volodymyr Zelensky and Rustem Umerov with the Mindichgate corruption scandal in order to make Ukraine support Donald Trump's new peace plan, which leads to actual capitulation, amid increasingly loud statements that the United States and Russia have developed their own peace plan for Ukraine behind the backs of Ukraine and Europe. President Zelensky arrived in Turkey today, where he met with President Erdogan and his Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council, Umerov. But the meeting between Zelensky and Trump's representative, Witkoff, was cancelled by the Americans, allegedly because Zelensky refused to even discuss this plan for Ukraine's capitulation, which Witkoff and the Russian representative Dmitriev are now actively promoting. And there are more and more rumors against the backdrop of the corruption scandal, Mindichgate. The FBI, which is now actively cooperating with National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine, the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine, may have passed some details to the White House that Trump could use to pressure Zelensky into accepting his peace plan. Let me remind you that just yesterday Zelensky announced some legislative initiatives that our country urgently needs. And also, on November 20, Zelensky is convening the meeting of the Supreme Commander-in-Chief. Zelensky himself stated today that he hopes to resume the exchange of prisoners of war with the Russians by the end of this year. Erdogan, meanwhile, urged resuming Ukrainian-Russian negotiations and broadening their scope. I'm Alexei Pichi, let's discuss this in detail. But before we start, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, give it a like, and write any detailed comment under this video. In addition, I ask you to subscribe to my Telegram channel, Peachy News. The link to it is in the description of this video. There we publish breaking news as soon as it comes in, because on YouTube it comes out a bit later. In addition, if you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, you can do so with any donation or a paid sponsorship subscription using the links and details provided. In the description of this video it says exactly that. Support the Alexei Pichi channel. Choose any format that is convenient for you. I will be grateful for any support you provide. So, today everyone is talking about the fact that the United States of America, together with Russia, are secretly developing a new plan to end the war in Ukraine. Axios writes that the 28 points of the plan are divided into 4 general categories: peace in Ukraine, security guarantees, security in Europe, and the future relations of the United States with Russia and Ukraine. The Russian envoy Dmitry expressed optimism about the chances of the agreement's success and stated that, quote, Moscow feels that the Russian position is truly being heard. After that, news emerged that today a high-level Pentagon delegation sent by Trump arrived in Kyiv to hold negotiations. United States Army Secretary Dan Driscoll, together with 2 generals, met with Zelensky and other Ukrainian officials, as well as representatives of the military and the defense industry. And later Driscoll plans to meet with Russian officials, probably in Moscow. But at the same time, President Zelensky was in Turkey, where he met with Recep Tayyip. On the night of November, 19 footage appeared online showing Zelensky arriving in Turkey on a working visit. And here's what's interesting. At the airport, he was greeted by Rustem Umerov, Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine, who had left on a business trip on November 11. I mentioned Umerov for a reason. On November 15, Rustem Umerov announced that the Russian and Ukrainian sides had decided to activate the Istanbul agreements, under which the release of 1,200 Ukrainians from Russian captivity is being discussed. Next is a quote from Umerov. On the instructions of the President of Ukraine, I recently held consultations with the mediation of partners in Turkey and the United Arab Emirates on restoring the exchange process and freeing our people from Russian captivity. As a result of these negotiations, the parties agreed to activate the Istanbul agreements. This concerns the release of 1,200 Ukrainians. These are the Istanbul agreements. This was also the main topic of Zelensky's visit to Istanbul. After meeting with Erdogan, Zelensky said he hopes to resume prisoner exchanges with Russia by the end of the year. Quote, we are making every effort to restore prisoner exchanges, to bring home Ukrainian military personnel and civilians who are being held by Russia, including Crimean Tatar political and religious prisoners. We hope to resume exchanges by the end of the year and bring back a significant number of prisoners. Turkey is helping a lot. Also, Zelensky said that he and Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan discussed the situation in diplomacy. Quote, Right now, many processes have intensified. We are trying to make sure that all this activity is directed specifically toward peace, toward a just peace and guaranteed security. The war must end. There is no alternative to peace. Russia must realize that there should be no reward for war, for killing. And this is important because yet another meeting between Zelensky and Turkey did not take place. A meeting between Zelensky and Trump's representative Steve Witkoff, who wrote together with the Russian Dmitriev, was supposed to take place in Turkey. Here is this new peace plan. But, as Axios writes, the United States President's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, on Wednesday decided not to meet with Zelensky when it became clear that he was not going to discuss the new American peace plan. And now I'll translate a quote from Axios that confirms what we were talking about just yesterday. Quote, "The meeting was postponed when it became clear that Zelensky was not interested in discussing Donald Trump's plan. Instead, the Ukrainian president brought another plan to Turkey, prepared together with European partners. According to an American official, Russia will never accept such a plan. Earlier, the United States shared the plan with Ukraine's National Security Council Secretary Rustem Umerov, who agreed with several of its provisions. Witkoff first received permission from Trump to negotiate with Zelensky in Turkey. Then, when it became clear that the Ukrainian president was not even going to discuss the American proposal, the United States president supported Witkoff's decision not to meet with Zelensky. As a result, one Axios source says the ball is now in Zelensky's court. He explained that the president of Ukraine would be welcomed in Washington if he is indeed ready to discuss a new option for resolving the conflict. And in this light, the corruption scandal involving Timur Mindich is coming more and more to the surface. The notion that the United States escalated the scandal at this stage is gaining traction, in order to persuade Zelensky and Umerov to accept the very plan for Ukraine's capitulation that Steve Witkoff developed with the Russians. Supposedly, the tapes from the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine mention Volodymyr Zelensky and Rustem Umerov. Allegedly, the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine materials state that. Well, and today, new details have also emerged from the National Anti-Corruption Bureau. And, as stated in the document, Mindich tried to obtain an illegal decision from Rustem Umerov about the acceptance by the state logistics operator of body armor for the armed forces of Ukraine that did not pass quality control and obtaining material benefit as a result. Allegedly, Mindich asked Umerov to give the green light for the supply of strange, low-quality body armor to the Ukrainian army. How this story ended remains unclear, and National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine is not sharing any details. At the very least, there is only a snippet of the conversation where Mindich allegedly asked Umerov to give such permission and says that he invested a lot of money there. They didn't pass quality control, but please let me supply them to the army. And supposedly, the United States can use all this to blackmail both Zelensky and Umerov so that they make some concessions. But is that really the case? I think we'll see in the coming days. So friends, I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone.